Welcome everybody to this Sogeti Labs webinar on recent trends in AI. I'm Jolien van der Zwan, head of Sogeti Labs Global, and I'm here with Mark Oost and Arun Sahu. Mark Oost is our Global CTO of Analytics and AI. He leads the strategic development of Sogeti's global AI portfolio. He has many years of experience in AI, analytics, and machine learning, works with clients across geographies. Arun Sahu is the AI and machine learning lead for Sogeti India. He works closely with Mark as a part of the global team in the development and pre-sales of various AI offerings for the Sogeti AI portfolio. So for our audience, you are all on mute, but you can ask your questions through the questions box in GoTo. And at the end, after the interview, we will share your questions, and Mark and Arun will answer them. So we'd like to start with a question to the audience, just to gauge where you are on the topic. That's a question in Mentee, so you can go to mentee.com, and the code you can see on your screen. So the question is, in what areas did you see a change in the speed of digitalization with the COVID crisis? And we're expecting a word cloud here, so we'll give you a couple of moments and see what topics appear. I think we all seen companies change due to this crisis. Working from home poses different challenges on how, as a company, you have to deal with collaboration digitally, for example. Here we go. Panic, that's an interesting one. Teams, I think, is very recognizable. Communications. Mark and Arun, what do you recognize here, or what do you find interesting?
Running around, I find very interesting. With working from home, I can imagine where this is coming from.
The home office, the home office, we are all in.
And I think the middle two words are really summing it up, right? Trying to communicate in these panicky times.
Yes, and especially in the beginning, I think, when we suddenly all had to change ways of working. Increase in productivity is interesting as well.
Yeah.
Non-stop availability, of course. There's a blurring of...
But could also have, of course, negative effects on people's lives, so they cannot distinguish anymore between private and working life. Of course, it's also could be an issue.
Yeah, so there's positives and negatives probably. You can see it in the words as well. They appear.
Yeah.
I think that's an interesting start to get this back from our audience. But then, if we take one step back, Mark. We saw a huge acceleration in the adoptions of AI in the past 5 years. And could you take us through that? What did you see happening?
Yes. So before we go into all of this, let's first recap a bit, because if we saw in the last couple of years, we saw quite a lot of a huge rise of artificial intelligence. And the funny thing is, I think one of the areas where we saw a very big adoption of AI is, for example, retail business. And of course, the Amazon stores that use quite a lot of artificial intelligence. And basically all parts of life started to be impacted by AI. You can also see that with the spendings in the last couple of years. If you go to the next slide, you will see a bit of an increase in the last couple of years of spending. And we saw that in every report. This is just one of the reports that were available. And you saw also a complete adoption appearing within the market, not only from from an innovation to getting it to production point of view, but also discussions started to start around it, like ethics, where we want to start, why we want to be with AI, etc., etc. So the adoption of AI grew quite heavily, and if you go to the next slide, you will see even some more numbers on that as well. Yeah, so we saw a very big increase moving away from innovation, and basically until the pandemic we saw moving towards our daily lives in any way possible, outside of our homes, self-driving cars, until our retail stores as well.
Okay, so it really became more mainstream, especially in the past year.
Yeah, yes, we saw that happening with all the discussions that are related to that as well.
Okay. So then I wonder what changed with this COVID pandemic. I mean, we asked more the general question to the audience, but specifically for AI, what was the change? And I think Arun is our expert on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So what has changed majorly, if you look around us, the most important thing that we see is the human behavior being changed. Now we have started thinking really differently. And the same goes to the organizations. So the organization have found a different way of how it should have been and how they can accommodate to this. So one of the examples, I mean, there's a very good video that we can play to that we all can relate to in our behavioral change that has come during this time. So if you can play that quick video, it would be really something that people can attach to. Yeah, so this is something I think we all can relate it to. We have lived this life for quite some time. So talking about the behavioral change that has come, it is more of a very volatile behavior, like people looking for a high price tag goods. They are now getting into the commodities where it is more of a survival or sanitizing thing. People are working like that. And when it comes to AI, we have seen that a lot of data science experts and analytics experts have talked about AI being broken in this pandemic situation where it is not able to do what it should be expected to be. So when I look at it, it is more of the AI that used to predict the human sentiments or human behavioral things in terms of maybe a sales prediction or something onto where it is really related to human. But when we look at the other things in AI, like we have not seen Alexa not understanding the English anymore. It's the same that what it was. So what we see is that the behavioral changes, which is more volatile, has an impact on AI, and the rest of the things maybe it is the same that we have seen before and after the pandemic in terms of AI. And the pandemic has taught us how important it is to take care of the AI that we have around us. It also needs some care. It also needs some uh, maintenance, and the main thing that has come out is how can we control it. And that is where if we start controlling it, it would be something that is prep for the next, for the future.
Okay. That's really interesting, Arun. And then if we can take one step back again, I wonder what would be the main benefits for clients to obtain using AI. I think we have a slide on it as well.
Yeah. So Thais, do you want to move to the next slides, please? Yeah, so basically this is the same thing that I was talking about where the behavioral change has come into picture. So so people looking at normal life is now looking for the things that they want, they need it for the survival. So Thais, do you want to just go next? Yeah, this is the AI after pandemic. I mean, it thinks that it has been predicting the human behavior, but there is something that we need to make a change. So Thais, can you go next, please? Yeah. So yeah, next, please. Okay,
Yeah,
so
I was looking for.
yeah, the top benefits from AI, what the organization at this point are looking into is identifying the right business opportunities. They want to understand how they can leverage AI to get new business opportunities so that they are ready to compete with their peers. They want to build something that makes them apart or stand different in this competing world after the pandemic situation. The better and the quick decision making, that's a key to any of the success. And every organization now wants to do a collaborative decision making with AI, and the leads or the business teams, so that they can work together to come to a decision that make them grow. Workforce productivity, that's something that has been there before the pandemic and now, where I can give one of the examples where we are implementing a complete document processing solution to improve the workforce productivity, resulting into a better client experience, and obviously automating the repetitive task. So Mark, you want to add something on this?
Yes, thank you, Arun. What you already saw is that we are still playing a very significant role when we are doing all this. So this hasn't changed, even though Corona hit us in this sense. We are still doing the same type of AI, and we need to start talking with our clients as well around these different areas as well. Sorry.
No, I wanted to ask you. They may have changed in priority, and that was a question we have for our audience as well. I'm really curious for your opinion about it as well. But let's ask the audience. We have another mentee question. Which of these 5 benefits of AI do you think gained in importance after COVID? And you can see the 5 options here. So we should see some filling of this bar chart. I know it's your favorite, Mark.
A bar chart is, but yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
The decision making
already
here.
See that we already see some better and quick decision making. Oh, now it starts to change quite a lot. Oh, wow. It's nice to see, and you can see it as well. I thought something similar would happen, is that we don't necessarily see one or the other for any other business. It's still going on. It's still going, but it moved more quickly. What we also saw, it's also nice, is that we thought that AI was very much in the innovation space, but we already saw it moving to production. And what you're seeing now is that they are basically accelerating it. So what we thought it would, okay, maybe they were, our clients would not pursue AI anymore because it was in their innovation budget, and of course they wanted to stop it. But what you see is they started to push a bit more on especially, for example, automating tasks, are also improving the workforce in that sense as well, of course. So the nice thing is that apparently nobody wants to compete anymore after COVID. So
that's the only
very nice.
difference you see in the answers. The other ones are pretty close together. Is that what you see as well when talking to clients, or is there anything else that strikes you?
Yeah, so with clients, we see basically the opposite, in the sense that competing tasks, automating, by the way, is for both very important. Automating tasks, but I think that's not the most important thing for AI. I think the competitive advantage that you can gain from having a good practice, doing it in a good way, accelerating your production-ready AI would give you a huge benefit over your competitors. I think that's one of the ones. Of course, you need the other ones as well. But what I think is also very interesting is if we look a bit more closely on the next slide, maybe we can.
Yeah, well, for the types of AI that are most widely used, I think was our next topic.
Yeah.
So predictive analysis is on the top here.
Yeah. So we see here, we see a bit the same thing happening with predictive analysis, for example, what we already saw. And what we also see quite a lot with, if this is, by the way, pre-pandemic still, so we don't have numbers from the pandemic, but we see that predictive analysis is very important for our clients. The funny thing is that because you can consider, for example, COVID as a black swan event. Nobody predicted that it would come, at least in the amount that we saw it happening, I think. And the funny thing is, if you go back, not go back on the slide, go back a couple of years. I was reading today something about it. I wanted to include it. It was so funny. Is that I saw that the Chinese were combating a virus, and already years back. And there were already isolations and complete cities were on lockdown, but we never saw that happening here. And what you saw happening is basically it was the kickstart of the whole revolution of e-commerce in China. This is where all these big companies that we now have around came from, and this pandemic was SARS virus. So that changed the whole thing that we have around, and saw new companies appearing with new types of business models.
So that's what we now see on a larger scale, probably.
Yes, so that's what I mean. So you see also, for example, Amazon is going through the roof at the moment, of course, with their shares, with their because they're in a good spot. But other e-commerce as well, and retail is really hitting, except for supermarkets again. And that's also what we see in AI. We really see now a rationalization. So it's going away from innovation. I really like, okay, where can we use it?
My question, I would wonder, next to technicalities, what would be needed to scale up AI as a company? If you say we're moving from experiments to using it more in the core of business, then what do you need as an organization to gain success in this?
Yeah, so what we saw happening at the beginning of the pandemic is when I was talking to CIOs or CTOs, but also other directors within AI, is basically try to change the way of working, of course, because the whole world changed around. And what they try to do is basically move to a more rational way of working, and also try to embrace more an interdisciplinary collaboration between the business and AI teams, integrating them. And also what we saw as well, because I saw automating tasks, and automating tasks is a very nice thing, But if you don't have control over it, and that's what we saw just happening before the pandemic as well, there was an rationalization. For example, if I put somebody, I have a car that has self-driving capabilities. If I put a passenger in my car, and I just go sit myself on the back seat and just let the car drive, the passenger will go nuts, right? And what we saw is just before the pandemic is that we didn't want to give full control to the AI, but we want to start collaboratively making these decisions, so not only in an isolated way. So we saw involving of the business, moving away from an IT only issue, more collaborative decision making. And of course, on the back of that, one I think of the biggest issues that we have at the moment is trust and fair AI, and those two are different. So with trust, I mean really trusting the AI, and with fairness, I mean how do we build the AI? Because what we quite often see is when we are talking about fairness in AI, is we never blame the algorithm. We always blame they don't get enough data, but we are testing all our algorithms on biased data then apparently, because if you see, for example, image recognition is being built on biased data, and these discussions came up and still are there, and this is also still where we try to help our clients with, and still are very important even now, even more.
How do you deal with it?
Sorry?
How do you deal with that in practice? Do you test on bias, or how do you prevent it learning biased information? Or
yes, so that's also a part of our second part of this story that we are talking about as well. Is that within Sogeti we try to build a sort of way of working, and also trying to help our clients with certain areas of AI. What I sometimes see when I have the discussion with our clients is that they really ask us, how are we bringing AI? So how do we do AI? How do we bring AI? And these discussions are part of it. And this is also, if we go to the next slide, I think a very good introduction into our way of working is that what we do as Sogeti, and what we proved at some of our clients already with the solution for AI is we see three different things. We don't try to, we don't know the business as such as the client does. We don't want to do that, but we want to give them some sort of better feeling of these three areas. And for us, data analysts, data scientists, data architects, even all IT people, even software developers probably in this call, are all aware of data and stuff like that. But our clients aren't, and that's why we tried with our solutions to really help these three different areas. So one is data availability, second one is really processing the AI, and basically the last one is also controlling the AI. So how can we keep it intact, keep it in control? Because that's also one of the biggest issues. What we also saw from a Capgemini research report, a lot of our clients are not pushing AI in production because they don't know how to control it, or they think they cannot control it. So it's more than just all the nice math that we are doing. It's more than, it's a complete mind shift at the client. And when that happens, what we saw at a couple of our clients, one of them, for example, Försäkringskassan, probably all the Swedish people now in the call are going all nuts because I probably pronounced completely wrong. That's where we really saw their embracing of using the data, doing it in a certain way and controlling it in a certain way. And then you see it really starting to move. And of course, we also have different solutions for that as well.
Cool.
And if we go maybe to the next slide, I can go a bit more into depth on that, or if you want to ask me something, you can do it as well.
Oh, no, go ahead. I think you're on a roll.
Okay, no worries. So for example, if we talk about the process, so the data availability is more of a technical issue, and we are very good in technical stuff, right? We always talk about tech stuff, ADA, GANs, machine
We're a
creativity,
technology company.
generative adversarial networks. But what we always lack a bit, but it's in our DNA, and that's what we also now try to bring to our clients, is really the AI quality framework. So testing is of course a very big thing within our company, right? We do a lot of testing for our clients. So why not make a bit more of an issue on that when we talk to our clients? And that's also, and the nice thing is that we can plot all our things back and the way of working back to this circle. And this circle we developed also basically together with other people as well. This is not something I came up with by myself only, but also colleagues like Deepa, Wei. This is something we want to try to embrace in all our engagements with our clients. So really have a framework where we go from business understanding to data, to model development, to deployment. And you see also as well what I already said, accountability, transparency, very, very, very key factors for trust, and the fairness factor as well in there. And the fairness factor starts with the business understanding. Because sometimes I'm talking to, for example, insurers, and they want to be fair to the end clients, but in the end, because an insurer is not to only avoid risk, they also willingly want to have some risk, because else there is no way, you don't want to insure, right? If you don't have to pay anyone anything, why would you insure anyhow? Yes. And that's what we see even more happening right now. Trust in people, of course, working from home also in an isolated way. Yeah, so that's why I think this quality AI framework that we are now presenting to a lot of our clients really starts to pick up in this area where there's a lot of uncertainty as well.
Okay, and I think we also we have ADA and CDP more from a technical standpoint that we bring to our clients.
Yeah.
Could you explain some about those two? I think we have them on in a picture as well.
Yes. So basically, that relates back to the first part. Of course, we already talked about the process, so this is a bit of the process, and of course, controlling it was in there as well. But we like to do tech, of course. Data availability is, I think, a very big thing within our clients. How are we getting to data? How are we extracting data? And I think these are two nice solutions that really shows us how to give data available. One of them is, of course, ADA. That's probably very well known to generate synthetic data, especially in this times of working from home, etc. You want to share data, you want to get data anywhere, and that's where ADA can come in to synthesize, to make sure that the data is secure and there's privacy in place. And next to that, of course, also extracting data. So a lot of data is still in very unstructured ways, documents, for example. If we talk to our clients, we see a lot of our clients are still saying, I'm getting a lot of documents, I'm getting a lot of forms. How do I handle that, especially in the times of COVID? That even becomes more important. So data availability, a lot of data, what we think that's digital, is not digital at all.
No.
And still isn't.
Example of a land registry where we had documents from 18th century, I think.
Yeah.
That we processed into readable text, and I think that saves that's a lot of efficiency and makes the data much more accessible.
Correct, and if you can have that in a correct way but also in other companies that still generate data. So we see a lot of our clients still having to cope with a huge amount of documents. One of our US clients is getting tons and tons of documents every day. It's insane. You think it's fully digital, and COVID forces us to become more digital. So that's a nice way. But how can we make sure that we can still get our data in place in time? And that's also where we try to help our clients with a solution, because we don't have to tell our clients how to do AI in their field. We can support them. We want to support them. So one of the ways to support them is to make the data available in a smart way.
Cool. And then how do you start at the client? What's the process? So they ask us to help, and then how do we work with them to find out what we're going to make and how to be successful in it?
Yes, good question.
Thank you.
So when I started, so maybe, I don't know if some people know it, I started in NL. Of course, we started with some first test, how would clients want to work. Then I moved to more global. I saw also in other countries. And of course, I also had my own, how I wanted to work, basically. But what we see is that AI, although now becoming at maturity, we still see a lot of hesitation at our clients. So part of the way of working that we do with our clients, instead of just saying, go for this, or that, we think that we should ask them, like, how mature are you? How mature, especially in these times, because they don't know. They don't have the feeling at the moment with the technology, and the technology is still moving really fast in this pandemic times. But they are not sure if things would work, and especially with this changing world, all the use cases that they had changed completely. So they don't know how they could accelerate with it. So with our framework, and we also tested this at some of our clients, and even one in pandemic times, a very big capital investment firm that asked us, for example, to use this framework to test one of the use cases. So what you see here on the right side or left side, I don't know from which side we are seeing it, it's basically an intake. We don't want to change the whole process of our clients around, but we want to assess maturity of a use case and assess maturity of the technology. Very good in both of them, together with the client collaboration, what I already said. If the client doesn't have a mature use case and the technology isn't mature, they don't want to spend 6 months working on it, especially in these times. They want to do a sort of fail fast approach. So what is better than a fail fast is to do very, very small hackathon, quick validation. And then we are moving the use case up. It could be that afterwards we're pretty sure we can move it to a pilot, or we are not sure yet and we take this as an innovation project. And this is how we nowadays move our clients very gradually, take them by the hand, giving them much more confidence in the use case that they have, and moving them along because they are very unsure what works still works, because a lot of the things they thought were normal are not normal anymore. And this is a nice way to really start slowly moving into it. So we really do an intake process nowadays at where is your maturity of your AI, of the technology. I need to go that way if I want to follow that. And then take it from there. Although we're not changing the complete way of working at our clients, and I think we also have a nice next slide on that as well. We still work in a very agile method of way. So when we have the intake of the client, we have done that. We still take them in a normal way of working, doing all the things, because we don't want to change the client's environment at all, but we want to give them much more reassurance when using AI and in the way of working. So you can see here still a very agile-like process with prototypes and iterations. Could even be you could even integrate here the incubator, for example, with the way of working. But it's more the intake process what we change quite a lot, and that gives our clients much more trust in starting to use AI in these uncertain times.
Yeah, so start off the collaboration, see how things work, evaluate, and then improve from there. It sounds like a good way of working. And then, what are the key lessons that you learned from these projects with clients?
So the key lessons that we have learned is first is that you need to collaborate, what we already said. So a lot of things that you saw back in these slides. And also what we also see quite a lot happening is that we use quite a lot of technology as a means to an end, and we don't want to do that anymore. Technology should be not the only way. We also need to have the business understanding, the use case, etc. on that as well. And we need to communicate. So we need to have what I already said earlier, the interdisciplinary collaboration. And therefore, you will require a culture change at our clients, and that's what we see now happening quite quickly. And the nice thing is on the back of this disruption that we already have. Sometimes I'm calling COVID a black swan event, and when I start googling on that, I don't know if you know what a black swan event is. It's something that they couldn't have predicted. Yeah, a lot of people say it wasn't a black swan event because we should have. We should have anticipated on that, etc., etc. Still, I think the massive amount of destruction it took could be considered quite black swan. The nice thing with AI is it has the same amount of disruption in general in our clients, and that really works together. So we see quite a lot of embracement there as well. I think we have a full. We can put it on the slide. I think we have a nice slide on that, on all the lessons learned. I don't want to go through them all, but I think the most important ones are, I think, you should know where the technology is at a client. The use case should be leading, and communicate across, moving from isolated deployments to a whole story, and that's what a lot of our clients take away from it. Sometimes some clients say, yeah, they see it as with the hackathon to a pilot as a start small, scale up. I don't necessarily see it as the same, but yeah, these are one of the things that are now. Yeah.
Okay, great. So for our audience, if you want to ask a question, now would be the time, because we have one more mentee question for you, and then we'll do the Q&A. So you can enter your questions in the Q&A area in GoTo. So we have a mentee ranking question about how to make sure your organization is ready for AI. And the question is, which one do you think is more important of these? The siloed way, the siloed work to interdisciplinary collaboration, collaborative decision making, or the trust and fair use in AI?
Yeah, and definitely the collaborative decision making. Really think it's taking together with the AI the decision. So it's not we together with the person, but making the decision with the AI. And this is really interesting. And also at this moment, so this COVID times, no before.
So the trust and fair use ends up third, Mark.
Yeah, we had a discussion about this. Oh, here we go. Oh no, it's going over here.
Yeah, now it's on top.
It's the trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Mark and Arun, what would you think? What would you put on number one here?
I would put interdisciplinary collaboration, because most of the time it is thought to be AI be a tech thing, and a tech people should be able to do this to suffice a business problem. But if there is an intercollaboration that is happening between the business and the IT tech people to get something created that makes them stand apart and get them organization growth. I mean, that's what I would have said. Maybe Mark goes more of a collaborative decision.
No. I think trust and fair use of AI is the most important one.
And is that the desirable one, or what's the reason that you would put that first?
the nice thing is our whole world changed, and I think it's nice that this didn't change even though this pandemic times. We are very easy to point at our clients saying like, yeah, we are doing what they do. And if you can see here, so apparently a lot of our consultants and our colleagues think differently. So apparently we need to make fair use of AI and making it trustworthy. So we should, now somebody disagrees and everybody's moving away from it. They don't want to advise. So we should also bring something to our client where they can also measure these on a certain scale. So, and that's a very awkward decision because we are very well equipped technology-wise in general. Even myself, I'm even not even talking about Sogeti as well, but even myself. Oh, I was moving down. Everybody thinks like jumping the ship. I don't want to do any fair AI or trustworthy AI. And what I'm seeing at our client is they ask us how can we make full use of AI without hurting trust and being fairness. And it also relates back to, I think, what Vint already says about the synthetic generation, right? Is that also these things change. So yeah, I think trust, but I think the other ones are also important. That's why I put all these three in, because I think all of these three would promote also trust as well. So fair use, using it interdisciplinary, so involve business. It looks all very common sense, but I think the last one, and even I made that mistake myself as well. What I'm seeing, and especially in these times now, if instead of you're giving the full control of the AI, is that they are able to make decisions together with the AI and just use it as a guideline. And that, I think, is the only way to move forward as well.
Yeah, so to make sure that AI makes you smarter. That's
yes.
the thing. Yeah.
Yes. I think think a nice example of that is what we saw in Go. So AlphaGo is an AI that beat the best Go player in the world, and he said, "I've become a better player at Go by playing against AlphaGo." And I think that's also how we should advise our clients as well. So, and that's also what we are now looking into. How are we able to make offerings, to give a solution to a client, so they are able to make the decision together? Because that's much more of a problem than just creating, for example, fraud detection. Model is very easy to create. How are you gonna convince somebody who's using the fraud model to use it together with his own gut feeling?
Yeah, that's a challenge probably, because it should be a balance somewhere between the old-fashioned gut feeling and the intelligence of AI, or the results, the insights that you can get from it that you couldn't before.
Yeah,
that's where the actual strength lies. And that's
but
also
now we are. Yeah, but now we are much farther away. Maybe our gut feeling is not so good anymore because we are all sitting apart from each other. And I think that's where something AI could maybe give you some guidance. And that's also one of the parts where the data availability comes in, because the data changed. Let's be fair about that. The whole world changed, our reality changed. And that's why we advise our clients to do that. All right.
I think it's still changing. I'm looking in our questions section, and I have no questions at the moment. So if anyone in our audience has a question, now would be the time. Maybe in the meantime, Arun or Mark, are there important things that you think our audience should know, or key takeaways for this webinar, or for these times and AI in these times?
Arun, do you go? I can go as well. That's not a problem.
I
will go.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah. So is that although general budgets of our clients go down, we see a very traction in getting AI up and running very quickly. Keep that in mind and don't do it too quick, and also help them to give it trust in these times. So because yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway. Giving the trust to the AI in these uncertain times is, I think, one of the things we should start to create with our clients. And I think and the second thing is, in that sense, data and data availability. And that's something what I see at our clients where we can really help them. A lot of our clients ask us, how are we getting the data in such a manner that we can start using it? So it's not only an AI thing, it's also a data analytics thing as well.
Okay, this is kind of related. Oh, go ahead, Arun.
Yeah, so I would echo that for the key takeaway from this is again related to data. So we all should make a point that data is the key to any of the AI that we think of. And the data availability is one of the key. It's not the end, but it's a good beginning that we should always think.
That's an important prerequisite. We have a question now from Mathieu Meyer, and he's asking, what is the next expected technological step that can power up AI? So Mark, what do you think?
Can you repeat the last part? It could be me, but...
What is the next expected technological step that can power up AI?
Yes. The nice thing is that with everybody knows about generative adversarial networks in Sogeti. If not, read the creative machine learning report from Flint. I think we see more of that. So what I envision, and I'm also working on something, so maybe we can have a follow-up on this session as well, is and I'm also working together with my colleagues from Sweden, Joachim, for example, just to shout out his name. I don't know if he's in the call. Is the COVID-proof employee. So what we see is chatbots evolving very quickly. We see deepfakes evolving very quickly. We see, on the other hand, we see GPT-3 being here. So generating lifelike text, and we see that RPA is going to a next level. Why are we not combining all of these technologies? So what we probably will see in the next couple of months, at least we are looking into that. How are we combining these into creating an artificial me, for example, that speaks to you about information that I've never seen before? And I think that's also one of the things we will move to speak more with virtual agents that are physically, or not physically, but looking very physical to us as well.
Okay. That's really interesting.
I think we will go there, especially if this stuff of this COVID still hangs. I think that's also, it's not only negative, because a lot of people say deep fakes are negative. They bring fake news, but also keep in mind, for example, if I have a virtual doctor, I can ask him also things that are quite awkward that I don't want to speak to a real one about. For example, if you have you're having unsafe sex, for example, and you want to ask something about an STD, it's very hard to go to a physical person, especially now, I think, to get tested or whatever. And I think that's where these virtual agents, what I'm calling them, but a real digital twin, as we speak about it jokingly, because we talk a lot about digital twins, but if we can make these advisors for the people, that would be really awesome. Really cool, I think. And come on, who doesn't want to have a second me? Just get in.
I hope this answers Mathieu's question. I would think so, at least. We have another question from Andrew Fullen. He says, I have a question. If AI was any good, why don't we have a COVID vaccine already? Lots of exclamation marks and between brackets, provocative, I know. So what would you like to go through?
True. So I'm hearing this question quite often at home as well. It's because it's research. It doesn't hold AI. I always talk about it. It's not a turnkey solution. It's a very cool. But don't use it for anything it should be useful. On the other hand, we do of course do quite a lot of computational advantages in AI. For example, scanning lungs being done quite a lot in China. There is a lot of breakthroughs within AI in COVID. But I'm very hesitant always to say AI is the cure for the world. It isn't at all. It is smart people that change the world, not AI or not digitalization. Everybody who speaks about their own field as that's the end of civilization is lying, and AI is in the same spot. So sorry, Andrew. I know, Andrew. I also want to have a cure of COVID, but I don't know. A neural net yet that can think about one.
That fix everything. So next one, we actually have quite a lot of questions by now, so that's great. What types of projects are you seeing as new/entry projects? Also, what's the initial investment? Mike Ranacek.
Okay. So what we see now quite a lot, and what I already said before, is really moving something very quickly to production. So it should be real. It should be adding, I hate this word, but I'm saying it anyhow, value. I'm only putting it in value in the sense that it either has a cost-saving event in it, but I hate cost savings. Creating AI for cost savings is not where you should use AI for, but differentiating. But there should be very quick results. That's why we see the projects appearing. At the moment, we also see quite a lot in automation.
Right, and Mark, to add, now there is people that we have learned from this pandemic. There will be something that we see will be coming towards controlling the AI, auto ML. So that's also something that we see coming in.
Yes. So with quite a lot of our clients, we are also talking about how do we readjust all the AI they already created. So that's also a very big, important one. And of course, but that's because we are pushing also quite quickly on it, quite hard on it. Is our synthetic data solution, but yeah, that's more because it's a unique offering, not necessarily related to pandemics or whatever. But mostly automating small and fast. And that's also what we try to deliver with this new approach to our clients. Fast, small, and
small steps. And
yes, big steps. And sometimes people are very hesitant of investing directly 100K at the moment, and blame them, to be honest.
So next one, in the near future, the amount of fake data will also increase. How can our AI solutions exclude the fake data?
To be honest, the honest answer at the moment that I know from research, because I read quite a lot on GPT-2, now GPT-3, but I use GPT-2 as well. Identifying fake generated data is really hard, especially with these new neural nets that are so overly complex. Adversarial attacks become a thing and will become a thing of the future. So that is in theory a problem, but it's already here. It's not something of the future, to be honest. Yeah, good question. It's very
Maybe
hard to identify.
you're working on it. Yeah.
Yeah, so we probably will get that, but at the moment, I always think it's amazing, but now I'm thinking of it, it's very hard to identify fake from real nowadays.
Yeah. So that's a challenge, I think, for the future. We have 2 more and 4 more minutes, but they're both about ethics. So I'll read them both, and we can see if we can make it. So first one is, who ensures that the department provides ethically accepted requirements and data for the learning algorithms? And then every company and every society has different values. Do we form a minimum, an intersection, or a union with our corporate values? So the actual question is, who ensures that ethically accepted requirements and data for the learning algorithms are provided? And then Mathieu has a question also about ethics. Is there some kind of international agreement about ethics limit with?
Yes. So to start with the last one, and maybe then Arun can also say something. Maybe it's good to know that I saw some. So I had the same feeling. So ethics and AI. So what is ethics? So what an AI? How are we? Because we need to do something with it, but I didn't know how either. So I will come with a series of blogs towards the end of the year. I found an ethical agreement that some of the bigger companies have signed, and I'm gonna to analyze that if I could disagree with it, and how we can check if we even doing it. And that will become, I've already saw some of the things in there that will create quite funny contradictions, believe me. So there are agreements in the field, but you can see that they are not created by data scientists, for example.
Okay.
Because if I ask one of my colleagues, maybe there are some in the call, Deepa, for example, or Mike, I don't know who's in the call, I don't see them, so I'm just shouting out some names. And I ask them, is the AI that you're creating unethical? Nobody's creating unethical AI by design, right? It's not that today I'm gonna create a bad AI. And that's the biggest issue with AI, because most bad AI on the market was not intended to be bad at all. It was a side effect. And that's what we need to control, I think, more.
Yeah.
But Arun, please also feel free to jump in.
I agree. I think the control is the word that we are currently seeing.
Yeah, and on the value side of things, we don't get a unified values worldwide because we don't have them at all. But from a company point of view, I'm also setting up some talks with Menno as well. I want to have at least something in place where we should comply to when creating or engaging with our clients. But for example, facial recognition is being banned now by IBM, I think, or Microsoft, or one other. I could mix them up, sorry for that. But very embraced by China, because they don't see it as something negative, they see it as something positive. The ethical values in that sense align to the society. So the AI you're creating in a society, and it's very hard because online is not really a society anymore, because online is everywhere. So this is a hard
as well. So
sorry?
It's a complex topic, I think. Ethics,
yeah.
Anyways, ethics in technology, especially. So I'm really looking forward to your blog series. And where can we find them once you publish them?
I will probably post them on Sogeti Labs as well, of course, and on LinkedIn. The first one will probably go up within 2 weeks from now, where I will sign one of these contracts, and then afterwards I will start. So I will sign literally the contract and try to also incorporate it in my daily life and also talk about it, what it will result in.
So looking forward to that. And by now it's already 4 o'clock, guys. So I'd like to thank you very much for all the information and a very engaging conversation. Also our audience for listening, watching us, and for your good questions. Next webinar will be on resilience. Andrew Fullen will interview Etzo Botjes, who wrote his thesis on this topic. And I think that's well, it relates to the topic that we discussed today, but then in a broader perspective and more theoretical perspective, I think. But it's going to be very interesting. So I hope you will all join us. The invite is already in your email. So I hope to see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you.